Starting up the stream. All right, looks like we are live. Hi there, Pointer Shift. Welcome to the stream. Yes. All right. So last week we did some stuff related to the ground slam ability. So in terms of unit testing, there are 3 failed unit tests, and these actually make sense. So these failed unit tests are directly related to testing the ground slam enchantment. So naturally, we haven't quite implemented all the ground slam stuff, so it's not doing damage. So these tests are expected to fail, which is great. I recently found your channel and I love watching you. Oh, awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. Thank you. Anyway, yeah, welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed the videos and hopefully you enjoyed the stream today. It's gonna be a little short because I started a little late, but we'll get what we can done. I appreciate that. All right, so let's see. First things first, I wanted to address something that I noticed last night. If I go ahead and run the game real quick, I did run a recent build of it. We fixed some issues related to like an enum. So just reviewing the changes from last night's commit. These changes just involve using this monster strategy enum to specifically specify that's the monster strategy enum instead of, as opposed to the monster strategy that static function, because there is a strategy function for each of these and they're actually named the exact same things as these enums. So this used to be an enum, not an enum class. So naturally there would be some namespace conflicts and that would actually cause some issues. So instead of doing that, we changed it to an enum class. Naturally, if we change it to an enum class, we also have to add monster strategy in front of everything. It's a pity the stream started when it's time for me to sleep. Oh, I'm sorry. We usually start a little earlier, so maybe next time you can catch me. But yeah, glad you are enjoying the streams, and maybe you can just catch the VOD later if you really wanted to. So yeah, thank you though. So yeah, that's what we've been doing, and in some places it's unnecessary. Like here, technically we have to put monster strategy, the namespace, in front of it. But not necessarily all the time. It just depends if there's a naming conflict, so it's just a good idea too. Anyways, the one thing I want to show is if we go to new game, well, and we specifically go to Ranger, because this is where it all started, you'll see in the descriptions for the abilities that they have these like placeholder texts. And obviously they're not supposed to be placeholder texts. And you can also see the text here is a little cut off. So typically we have to reduce the total amount of length when it comes to this text. And naturally we have to do the same thing down here. And then in all the other ones, we actually don't have anything related to damage numbers. We just like explain that this is what they do, but they don't have any damage numbers associated with them. Now, one suggestion was that we actually show the damage numbers only in here, which is what I've kind of been doing. So you'll see in here, the descriptions are different. So it's just a matter of changing the Ranger one to have, you know, a description that doesn't have this verbose text, as we call it. So that was kind of a bug we discovered. Another suggestion from my playtester, my composer, was instead to make it so we have like an advanced tooltip option that you can either tick on or off, because maybe some and you can see here they're not even implemented yet, right? So I think today I want to actually focus a little bit on this. I know it's kind of like straying away from the chapter 4 boss AI stuff, but I would like to try and get this done at least a little bit and go from there. Yeah, we'll catch you next time, Pointer Shift. Thanks for stopping by. Bye-bye. Okay. All right, so we're gonna address that today. We first have to find out where we even begin to explore all of this. So my initial guess is that we open one of our class files. Like, let's just start with the Ranger, for example. And if we look in ranger.txt, this is the configuration file for the Ranger and all of the ability descriptions. So if we look in the ability descriptions, we'll see quickly steps backwards to avoid incoming attacks, blah, blah, blah. And then we see here, I started adding in variable substitution for the descriptions related to all the abilities. And this was like the start to all this, right? So we were creating some kind of syntax that would parse this. Now, interestingly enough, if we go to enchantments, so let's go to item enchants, we will actually discover that these actually already have this variable substitution implemented. So literally it's just a matter of deciding, okay, why isn't it working for the info screen on the player screen? It's clearly working in game on the equipment new screen, so we need to start by addressing that. So the place I'm going to go to is probably the class like selection menu, or maybe the character menu window, one of the two, right? Like maybe it's like an info window. There it is. So the class info window is the window that pops up when we're deciding, or we want to see more detailed information about the class. And you can see here, these are just labels containing these displays. So we have what's called a character ability preview component. So if we open up the character ability preview component, our menu system is divided into subcomponents, so you can add components to components, and then those will have their own displays, and using object inheritance, all the draw calls and update calls get called accordingly. So inside of here, we will see that we just have the description here. No parsing done, it's just the raw description, right? So obviously, because we have some dynamic text in there, that all needs to be parsed. So now we have to find whatever is required for this like parsing function. Now I presume I just put it inside of the ability class, and there's probably something to display the proper description. So we can see here we have a get description function, which returns a string view supposedly containing the actual string we're interested in. So let's take a look at how that's calculated. So it just returns description, which is not quite helpful. So let's see, so down here we have one called get description with player modifiers. So inside of here, it looks like we have a translation function. So I think for somewhere in like a stats class, we have decided how we parse stats. So this is the translation function right here. It returns a formatted version of grabbing some kind of value, and we specify like, okay, if you see the damage multiplier key, here's what you do. Here's how you, I guess you can call it stringify it, right? It's how we parse it. So if we go back to ranger.txt, we see here, this is called damage mult. So damage mult, we then go back to ability, and we'll see, okay, so assuming the key is damage mult, then parse it into a float, and then take the multiplier as a float and multiply it by the player's attack, then return it. It gets automatically rounded down because it's an integer casted from a float, so it's an explicit cast. And then from there, we can do some other things. So that's like the this is the part where we implement like special prefixes. So then we go down here, we have this parse variables lambda. This probably does the bulk of the work for actually reading the text, right? So this looks like a bunch of text parsing. We have a lambda called find and parse. It's inside of a giant while loop. It looks like it loops from the beginning of the text until it reaches the end of the ability text, checking character by character, finding opening and closing braces. And it looks like it attempts to do find and parse. And inside find and parse, it looks like it can convert HTML color code so it can color your text accordingly. And then it uses the special prefixes map, which we populated up here. So it looks like it utilizes that. And then we go down here and we can see the final description is determined by the prefix description calculated by iterating through every enchantment, seeing... So this function, I believe, returns every enchantment that the player is affected by inside of a vector. You can see here, it returns an enchants affecting list after it figures out if we have each particular enchant. So then it goes through and figures out how those modifiers affect the stats. This is all very complicated, so I'm just refreshing on what this is doing for context to make sure I understand that this is exactly what we need. It looks like if we have multiple, like, it looks like it adds spaces in between as well, which makes sense, parsing the descriptions. We also have what's called like a prefix and suffix system. So when it's specifically for enchantments, if we look inside of enchants one more time, we can see we have what's called a pre-description, a post-description, a pre-name, and a post-name. So depending on how the enchant is, like for example, this enchantment is called multi-shot. The original name of this ability is called multi-shot. So we added a prefix name so that in-game it appends multi-dash in front of multi-shot, which is kind of cool. And then we have a post description where on top of the default description of the ability, it will then add this to it. So it's a very flexible system that allows us to add or remove things. Well, not remove things, but append things to either the beginning or the end of descriptions or names of abilities as we see fit, depending on what the enchantment is supposed to do. 10 minutes late, but hello. Yes, welcome, welcome. And hello, SB Code. Good to see you. Welcome to the stream. Yes. So overall, that is what the function does, a little summary. So now let's hop all the way back to our character component here, and we're going to be using get description with player modifiers. I believe this is what we have to use. Now, this is also interesting because it's going to constantly call this. So the question is this an expensive function? I hope it's not, but we'll see, right? If we go to the menu and it's like grinding to a halt, then it's pretty intensive. I don't expect it to be because at most we're doing this for 5 abilities, and 5 abilities doesn't sound like much in terms of text parsing. So doing this every frame should be okay. Now we also have ability name here, which I think we also need to replace with get name with player modifiers, because if they're already modifiers, we would like that to display as well. I think my original issue with doing this was that it would use the enchantments of the previously loaded save. So I think that was the logic behind it. But as long as we do a proper reset of the player's inventory when we go back to the title screen, that should not be an issue. So my hope is that this is all that is required in order to make this work proper. So we're going to try this first, and we're going to see what that does. In theory, it works for everything. It's just no other class has the little like curly braces yet to determine what the multipliers should display in game. So we're gonna get to that part, and then we have to work on the actual labels. So there are 6 classes in this game. I think I just started with the Ranger class because that was one of my favorite classes and I just work with it a lot, so naturally I worked on that one first, but we have to do it for all the classes. You making your own engine, that's cool. Could you recommend some resources to get started? If you're specifically asking for a C++ resource, then a good learning resource is learncpp.com. Learncpp.com provides you with basically like textbook tutorials on how to learn C++. And so if you're just starting out and you need a place to like read up on the language, how it works, this thing goes into very much detail and is pretty much caught up up to modern C++. Mine is C++ 26, but that's still like very bleeding edge and not even implemented in many compilers, so you don't have to really worry about that. This is a great, fantastic resource for learning the language. In terms of learning the actual game, like, development part of it, usually for me at least, I like to grab a framework that is very easy to get started with. So for me personally, I use OLC Pixel Game Engine, but there are other frameworks you can use, right? One of the common ones I see often in terms of simplicity is Raylib, but you can also choose to use like SFML, right? Like, this is OLC Pixel Game Engine, and I'm on this website called PGE Tinker, which just supports like an online place to like write some code for testing, like before it's like a try it out before you actually do it, right? Or you can code in it, but it's a single file thing. And there are some examples here too. So not only does it support PGE, but it also supports Raylib, and it also supports SDL. So like, here's the Raylib, here's the entity bouncing balls example, which just runs it with entity, and this is using Raylib, so it runs as well. So if I wanted to start learning like a language, I would choose something that allows us to output graphics very quickly. So Raylib or Pixel Game Engine are very good starting points so that you can get into the fun of coding and trying out things, because you're going to make mistakes and have a lot of things that are going to go wrong. So having like quick feedback and be able to change things is very nice, right? Like, what if I wanted them to be rectangles instead of circles? You need to have like that quick iteration cycle, right? So you can constantly try new things, because if you don't, then it's just going to cause you to not be able to have fun with it. And the whole point of programming is to have fun. At least I think so. It's fun to learn something when you're having fun, right? So then we make rectangles instead of circles. So it's a fun way to just quickly make changes that you want to make, right? In terms of game engine stuff, if you want to learn how to write your own game engine, then what I would recommend doing is starting with a very basic game, and you will quickly notice that you run into like problems, right? And you'll be like, well, how do I solve this problem? What tools are at my disposal? And there are these things called programming patterns. So there are 3 things you probably need to learn. One is, let me find specifically the game design patterns. Here we go. So there's a website called Game Programming Patterns, right? And, all right, wait, yes. Okay, so there's a couple of design patterns here that are commonly found in games. So game loop is in here. This one's pretty like important or fundamental, right? So that's one. There's one specifically for the update method itself, right? Just like some ideas here for you. There's also, you're also gonna need to know data structures. So like data structures, you typically just look up anything related to programming. Any programming course can teach you data structures, so you kind of get your you learn what are arrays, like all your basic containers, all your hash maps, your sets, right? And then you can learn like more advanced stuff like linked lists, doubly linked lists, spatial maps, those kinds of things. You probably need more specific like tutorials you might look up on like YouTube, or you can just search for those as well. I typically like to just look up stuff and look at text guides, but some people are more visual learners, so maybe seeing helps. I think that gets you through the brunt of it, and by developing over time yourself, like trying to develop like a menu system, you'll find a lot of difficulties with that in terms of like object inheritance. So then you might spend time learning object-oriented programming, or maybe you might just go a different route and you might do a menu building through composition, as it's called. So there is that as well. There's a lot of ways to approach game design, and there's no one right way. Some people also use what's called the entity component systems. You can learn how to do that too if you prefer. You can also just stuff everything in a vector, or you can try to manage memory via like a memory arena. I'm throwing a lot of these things out there because there's probably going to be something you might be interested in, and it's good to have things to like latch onto that you want to explore, because not everything you do in game dev you're going to be interested in. Some things you might just want to grab an algorithm online and continue. Some things you might get really deep in the weeds for and you want to actually build yourself. So it's more about just finding what you enjoy in the hobby and really diving into it. Started with Handmade Hero. I think Handmade Hero is a little dense, only because of the start from scratch nature of it, right? If you have like a framework, I think it's a little easier to get started because you can immediately write some code to put stuff on a screen, right? So in my opinion, Handmade Hero is not the best starting point. If you specifically are interested in Pixel Game Engine as well, I can't recommend Javid X9 enough as well. Javid X9 is the creator of the OLC Pixel Game Engine, currently working on the 3rd iteration of it, and he's got a lot of fun little videos of just all sorts of random things he does. And if anything, if you don't end up building in C++ or using a framework, at the very least, he's a computer programmer, hobbyist, content influencer. So at least like getting ideas off of influencers like him, I think is also very important because it might inspire you to do things as well, right? So there's that too. Just some ideas for you. So back over here, I'm gonna just, so obviously this hasn't changed. We haven't touched any code for that. But let's go over to new game and go to info. And we can see now these have been properly replaced with values here. Now these are obviously values for like a ranger that's like level 1. At least I hope it's for a level 1 ranger, right? This shouldn't be for my ranger I just loaded. So it looks like if we like load into the game, obviously the numbers should be much higher because this is a much higher leveled ranger. And then we look at the title screen, it looks like we properly reset everything so that it displays like level 1 stats, right? And I think this is more, this is a better approach to this, because I think originally I was gonna have like a description that's just like a simple description of what the thing does, but maybe seeing the damage numbers is helpful. I don't know. I'm still like debating it. Do I want like a simple description for a new game, or do I still want to show the damage so at least you can compare between characters, right? It's just like if it just says shoots 4 arrows, it's like, okay, well, how strong is it? Are the ranger abilities like weak in comparison to like the wizards, right? Like I think we should be able to allow the player to have that ability to look and say, okay, well, here are the damage numbers. If they're interested in figuring out, okay, do I want to deal with a high damage character that has long cooldowns, right? Like there's so many ways to go about this. Obviously, like we don't want to display too much information either, which is where I think my friend or composer mentioning that we shouldn't, we should have an option to toggle between like advanced and simple tooltips, I think is still a good idea. Anyways, this description is too long to display on that screen, so my options are I either make it so I can auto-fit the text in those things, or I reduce this a little bit, because it is a little wordy. So, fires an ultrasonic arrow towards a location. We can remove towards a location. That's kind of redundant. Piercing everything it comes in contact with. Piercing targets. Piercing through targets. I think it's important to emphasize that it's going to pierce through multiple targets. And then deals X amount of damage. Yeah, it was just a little wordy, so we can definitely strip it down a little bit to a more basic description, and that should be fine. So now that we've done that and we know it works, we can start looking at the other classes. Like for example, let's go to Warrior now. I think Warriors is over here, and let's take a look. Hi there, Cooked Potato. Welcome to the stream. Yes, it has been a little while. but good to see you again. Yes, so let's see here. We got blocks incoming damage for a brief period of time. So I want to say nullifies instead of blocks, because block how much damage? We don't have an actual number. It's supposed to reduce all damage to 0. So maybe we should say that. Reduce damage to 0. Reduce all damage to 0 for a brief period of time. So the brief period of time thing, we can look at the attributes for block. So this is where things get a little bit more difficult, right? Because we have to basically append like the duration as a variable into our text. So we have to say something like this. I believe that's all we have to do to make the system work. So when we say reduce all damage to 0, there's really there's nothing that says like how much the duration should be. We could add something, but just to make the text blue if we wanted to. But let's just make sure this is how we use this system. I literally think you just put the variable name inside, and that's literally all you have to do. So let's just take a peek. So we go to new game, warrior, and we can see reduce all damage to 0 for 3 seconds. So it looks like that's all we have to do to create this like variable substitution system, which is great. I think I want to make this a float though, instead of an integer. I don't know if that means I just have to do this. I think that's all I have to do, and it will display as 3.0. I'm pretty sure it just converts as a string, so whatever I put there is what it's going to display. Okay. So now that we've done that, let's go to the next one. A battle cry that boosts the warrior's damage and defense capabilities for some time. So, let's say we already know it's called battle cry, so I think I'm going to remove that beginning text and say boost the warrior's damage by let's see. So attack up increases 0.1. So I think for percentages we have to like write something else. Also, Neuro Exorcist, thanks for the follow. I appreciate it. Let's take a look at how we do percentages, because I think there is a way. Like, see how we have like cooldown reduction percent here, like PCT. So this is for the multi-shot enchant. So if I go ahead and open up the enchants list, and we just go, oh wait, we're already here, duh. It's right here. So cooldown reduction percent, it literally has the text just like built in, but I think the issue is it's not really synced with the actual value. Like, for example, I have 0.1 here. Do I change it and then redo what uses this? I think that's the only way. I don't know how we can do an as percent. Oh, we could change that one function we saw earlier. If I go back to ability.cpp and we make it so the get description with player modifiers function has another translation function specifically to convert percentages, then we can use it for that. So let's go ahead and make a new like translation function called PCT for percent, and then we're gonna grab the percentage here, which is going to be a float in decimal form, and then we're going to format it as percentage multiplied by 100, and then that should display correctly. Maybe we add the percent sign as well. So I'm thinking something like that. I don't know if we want to display the decimals. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. We'll see how that looks. So anyways, by doing that, now we can go back up here, and I think if we specify the function name and then a colon, it will utilize that function. So we do PCT colon followed by attack increase, and that will then give us a percentage thing instead. And defense by, and we can do the same thing for defense. The damage reduction is 0.1. It's odd that I said defense instead of damage reduction. And damage reduction by, we can do the same thing but for damage reduction right here. And I think that's all we'll have to do. Never give up, keep going. Yeah, that's the biggest thing with game programming is you're basically running a marathon. You're kind of in it for the long haul, right? So that's like the most challenging part of game dev. You just have to keep at it, a little bit of time spent each day working on it until you finally get done. Just waiting for the link. But yeah, today's a chill day. I know we're supposed to do boss AI stuff, but I noticed this was an issue and I really want to address it today. Ooh, we got a crash. It says, cannot find variable PCT attack increase PCT colon. What? That's interesting. It interpreted it as PCT colon attack increase PCT colon damage reduction. What? Okay, that's fascinating. I don't even think this is related to what we edited. I think this is somewhere else. Let me see. That's right here. Can I find variable blank for... Okay, that was the output. So in here we are on the markers 97. That's optimized out. But we... Okay, if the marker's 97, I kind of wish we knew what the text looked like. What was the original text? Kind of wish I knew. But yeah, apparently the variable name got parsed incorrectly. Or maybe not incorrectly, but differently. Oh, you know what? I'm looking at this. It's both of them combined. Look at that. How does that make sense? Because, I mean, I put the braces, so that shouldn't be the issue. Okay, that's kind of weird. Let's, I mean, like, it ended early, so ability config, right? Like, this searches between, like attack increase would be in there. But maybe it was trying to find, like, something else? Yeah, here's attack increase. It's almost like, is the PCT thing wrong? Like, did the suffix thing get calculated? I guess that's my next question. Did we take care of the translation function? Okay, so there is a known translation function called PCT, which means we're expecting that when we get down here, we're gonna check if there is... Okay, that's find and parse. So here is find and parse. And it's supposed to find anything with that translation function inside of it. Let's take a look at how we did this for Ranger real quick in case I missed something. So in here, yeah, I put damage bolt colon damage mult. Is it possible it's backwards? Because it might be backwards. So real quick, let's just try it the other way and just see what happens before we go ahead and start a debug build, which I probably should start building now because that's gonna take a minute. Alright, we'll just try this one more time. Okay, so now it says cannot find translation function for key attack increase, which means we know it's supposed to be PCT. Also, I'm Attila. Thank you for the follow. Appreciate it. Okay, so I just went ahead and put it back to PCT, which means at least we know it recognizes there's a translation function, but then the parse after it gets a little strange, right? And at least according to this, there shouldn't be an issue with parsing like multiple things. That should be handled properly, so I guess my next question is... what happened? Let's go ahead and start the debug build, and let's see. We're probably gonna have to break points somewhere around here, but I think the debug build might already give us enough information to tell us where we're at, what we're doing, why we're doing. Let's inspect the parsing code real quick. So, braces found should start out as false, at least at first. But this is a... okay, this is local to here. That makes sense. So braces found, not braces found, and find one of these, open braces. It, like, detected the first string. Find and parse. Let's take a look. if it has property variable name, how did we get variable name? Variable name, huh? Okay, so variable name is parsed from here. So braces found is true. And then go down here to marker plus plus. Next like index, read whatever. It's gonna be a normal text. So then we hit this else statement, which is going to be plus equals C. So accumulate until we get to if brace is found and close brace. Then we're gonna see if whatever we captured so far is inside the find, or parses through find and parse. So up till this point, variable name has been populating. So okay, so here it tries to match, but it's PCT colon, so it's not gonna match. So then it goes down here and looks for the separator marker with the colon, and then if it finds it, so this is starts at end pause, tries to find and set it and make sure it's not equal to end pause, which means it's been found. Then the separator key is a substring up to the separator marker, and the value is everything after the separator marker, which is the colon. So we should have key and value in here. So we would expect at least we would hit a breakpoint right there. Hi Plasticky! Welcome to the stream! Good to see you! It is not morning, by the way. It is like 4 in the afternoon. For both of us. Alright, I'm just waiting for the game to start. So we're in debug mode now, so... Okay, let's go here. So we do hit this breakpoint. We get a separator key of PCT, and we get a separator val of attack increase. So surely we should be searching now for separator val to find that variable. So special prefixes should have found PCT. So this should not be hit, and it should keep going down to here, which says if we don't have the separator val property, return false, which we do have it, so it should ignore that. Then it should increment final text by parsing it with special prefixes set. So it should run the function at this point, passing in separator val as the key. So let's go ahead and enter, well, let's let it run. Final text is now boost the warrior's damage by blah blah blah. That's the blue text, 10%. So we know that part's working so far, so let's exit here. So it should have returned, did it return true? Yes, it returned true. So since it returned true, this should be ignored. Wait. Error? Wait, that doesn't make sense, does it? Why are we erroring? If not find and parse... What? We should not be erroring, right? Because this is on the next line. Even though this is... Wait. If it's on the next line, does that count as a new token? Is it because this white space? Should it be... It should be looking like this? Has this been here the whole time? If not find and parse error... Otherwise we're good. I feel like we should be doing more here. What does... Wait. This was like this in the last commit. I wonder... This doesn't make sense. I'm pretty sure if you put a new line, it's still gonna read this as, like, part of this if statement. That doesn't change. It just reads whatever the next thing is. Unless this error macro doesn't expand properly, which I'm pretty sure it does. Oh, okay, it doesn't run. It just highlighted it. Okay, good. But I'm gonna bring it up here to avoid the confusion, right? So, final text is this. But we're not done. We still have to increment the marker. I feel like we're supposed to put a braces found is false here. It looks like we're missing a braces found is false. But then how did this work at all in the past? Did I just get lucky? Because look. Yeah, we'll keep going, but like... How does it get reset? Like, final text, or not final, sorry. Braces found is false. Oh, braces found got set to false up here. Okay, so we're good so far. So now, it's gonna set braces found to true once it gets to the next one in the text, right? So let's go to... let's say we hit which marker? It's gonna be a little while, so let's just go for a little bit until we reach that point. C is currently a space, so let's just go until we hit the next open curly, which is a little further by space. I think there's 2 spaces according to my document, and then here's the open curly brace. So braces found should not be true, now be true, which it is. Okay, so far so good. And then parse until we get to a close brace. Okay, so right now it's doing PCT colon all of that damage reduction. Okay, and then we crash here. So now let's take a look at these, right? Okay, so it looks like we don't reset this variable that we're storing, so the variable name needs to get reset as well. That looks like the bug. Which is interesting that it's gone this long without being detected. So that's fascinating. So the issue now is that variable name here has not been reset since the last time we parsed it. So now I'm gonna go ahead and make it so when braces found is set to false, it also resets the variable name. We shouldn't need the variable name anymore. So we can, not false, just empty string. And let's see here. Anything else? I think that's it. We're good to go. When did you get a degree in clocks? Yeah, I'm the time queen. You're right. Yeah. I don't have a prop. Okay, so I think that's all we have to do. So we just have to make sure braces found is false and variable name is set to blank each time when we parse, and we're pretty much good to go. Here's another one, and you notice we actually did it here. So we just missed an edge case from the looks of it, because this one did it correctly. Oops. Yeah, that makes sense. It makes sense how I could have missed that. So let's see if it runs now. It looks like it's fixed itself. At least that's the hope. And then we can proceed. But it looks like it was very easy to add a new translation function. After just rereading that block of code for how we parse the descriptions, it all kind of makes sense. We implemented that a long time ago, and it seems to be doing exactly what we want it to. It was implemented pretty intelligently. You don't get to see this thing very often, the debug console, because usually we're not in debug mode anymore. Alright, so we're gonna go here, and we can see it actually loads now, and it actually parses these into percentages, which is nice. I think this is a much better description because it actually tells us what is going on, right? We know now what it does. Okay, so that's that. I am removing the extra space there. Let's do the next one. So we can implement it for all of these. That's fine. Ground slam leaps and dives into the ground. Leap and dive, it's either gonna be both singular or both plural. Knocking back and damaging nearby enemies. We can say, so in the process is a little redundant, but we can say for and provide the amount of damage now. This is a multiplier, so we're gonna go ahead and do the same thing we did for the ranger and say damage mult colon damage mult, and then just say damage out here. That should be good. Then for Sonic Slash, a large sonic wave projectile is released from the warrior sword, striking all enemies. Striking enemies for... Like, it's important if it's AoE, we mention, like, we make enemies plural or something. And then we say damage mult, colon damage mult, damage. Oh, damage. Yes. So hopefully that is closer to what we want. I'm actually going to go back to the release build. We don't have to wait as long. We shouldn't have to perform any major recompilations since we already have... We just modified a CPP file, so it shouldn't have to rebuild any headers, which would cause a cascading rebuild. So yes. Hi there, Godless Monkey. Welcome to the stream. Good to see you. Alright, so we're just gonna make sure all those descriptions look good, nothing's funky. And that's warrior descriptions implemented, so that looks good to me. Leap and dive into the ground, knocking back damaging nearby enemies for 25 damage. Yeah, I like this a lot better. It definitely makes it more clear that, like, to the player, they're like, oh, I'm looking at these numbers. Now you can compare even class by class, like, oh, hey, how much damage is each class doing, right? At least from a baseline level. So I do really like that we're implementing this. So let's go on to Wizard next. Found you on YouTube, really like your settings. Yeah, a lot of people comment and ask me like what they are, so I'm more than happy to provide those. It's just, if I'm gonna be coding in here for thousands of hours, I gotta make it a little fun for myself, right? Yeah, so gotta spice things up at least a little bit. So next up is wizard.txt. So first we have the right-click ability, vanish and reappear at a new target location. That's really all it does. There's nothing too special about it. We could mention the range of it, but I don't think that's really important. We don't really talk about ranges in the game. Like, you're not looking at like grid squares and deciding if you can realistically hit something that's like 4 squares away, right? So range is not particularly important in this game. Shoots an explosive bolt of fire. Let's just add damage. Deals. And then the damage mult. So it's interesting because the firebolt actually has 2 damage values. One is the initial hit, followed by the second one being a... Let me see, where is it? The explosion itself. So this is a little more interesting because depending on if it's hit by the explosion or the main target itself, it takes more damage. And I have hiccups. Okay, so shoots an explosive bolt of fire. I don't know how I want to word this because it's kind of hard to explain, and I don't want it to be too wordy. So it's like deals X damage and explodes, dealing Y damage to nearby targets. I think that's pretty good. Deals blank damage, then explodes, dealing blank damage to nearby targets. I think that makes more sense, so let's go ahead and fill those in. So we're using the damage mult translation function, followed by those variables, like so. I think that's the best way to word it. And then we're looking at lightning bolt. Shoot an electrically charged bolt, spreads to 2 other targets upon impact. So shoot an electrically charged bolt. I think it does the same damage regardless, so I'm just gonna put deals blank damage. Damage mult colon. Damage mult to all hit targets. This one might be too wordy. But we're gonna see. That's why we go try it out after too in game. After channeling, summons a meteorite from the heavens to crash into the planet. So after channeling for X amount of seconds. So let's put the precast time here. Summons a meteorite from the heavens. This one's also a little interesting because the fire ticks deal a different amount of damage compared to the initial hit. Crashing into the ground for blank damage deals additional fire damage over time. Additional blank fire damage over time. So this one's too wordy for sure. We can say channel for X amount of seconds. Summon a meteorite that crashes to the ground. That crashes Summons a meteorite that falls to the ground. Summons a hurling meteorite, a falling meteorite. Summons a meteorite that falls, that crashes, that strikes for... I think I like that the most. Summons a meteorite that strikes for X amount of damage, deals additional wildfire damage over time. Let's try that. I think that's a pretty good way to do it. Damage mult. Colon. And then we gotta put... Where's the other one? It's just... There's a lot of variables for meteor. It's very involved. I am not seeing the damage multiplier. Fire ring damage... There it is. Fire ring damage multiplier. Here we go. Okay. Let me see if we can include the duration. Deals additional fire damage over blank seconds. That would be nice. I don't think we'll mention the frequency, but we will mention how many times. Firing lifetime, but that's not necessarily how many times. It depends on the frequency. So we'd have to do some math, which I don't know if I want to do, or maybe I'll just add the number, the amount itself. Who knows? Like, do I really want to add like a thing that parses math? Like, that doesn't really make sense, does it? Okay, let's take a look at the enchants and determine how we want to do this, because we do have modifiers for this. So let's look at wizard modifiers. So we're looking for anything with ability 3. So here's ability 1 modifiers, ability 2. Here's ability 3 modifiers. So meteor cast time gets reduced. Meteor attack falls twice as quick. Damage is reduced. Meteor cast time increase. Meteor is double size and deals blank attack. Firings last twice as long. So there's nothing mentioning about the frequency, which means the frequency doesn't change, so I am confident enough to put the frequency right in here. Excuse me. I'm confident enough to put the firing lifetime over here, but then we look here and the firing duration mult is a variable that modifies or gets displayed. I don't even use it. So how about we override it, because we can, and say firing lifetime is now 8 seconds, right? Yeah. So then how do we actually use this thing? Because we have firing lifetime 8 seconds. So how is that being utilized in the actual wizard, the implementation of Meteor? Because if we're assuming that we're using that variable somewhere, if we know it's from the enchant, right? So here's ability 3. We add effect Meteor. If enchant solar flare, meteor type is solar flare meteor. So let's go inside the meteor class. Okay, so we have a switch statement here. Case solar flare. Here is the firing lifetime. It's based on firing lifetime, and then it has a hard-coded multiply by 2. So that's fascinating. How about we just use the firing lifetime itself, and we're adjusting it based on the override, right? Now I wonder if it actually reads it from here, because I don't think it does. Let's take a look. So what does get config or config float tell us? I think it calls get config. Can we load, please? No? Ugh. Okay. It's probably under Adventures in Listoria .cpp, because this is like a global thing, so I'm pretty sure it has to be in this main file. We're looking for operator. Oh, here it is. Yeah. So data get property, get real alpha debug. Oh, this is just the raw value. It doesn't do any parsing. Okay, so that's fascinating. So I do hard code it for that reason. So these are just here as description modifiers. They don't actually impact anything. So I have to leave the ×2 in, and I'm just calling it. I guess I might as well call it something else then, like firing. Well, no, because then we do read from this for overrides. At least we should. So now let's take a look at ability.cpp again. and look and see how the overrides work, right? Because that would be the next thing is, how do we check for overrides? So if data has property, separator value. So the data comes from where? Where does data come from? Where do we call this? So we call it from enchant.get.getData. Okay, this is interesting. So this is probably how we do the overrides. So get data says, okay, is this a... It would be a class enchant. Class to string a name. Okay, so this is the class name. This is the enchant name. So if we look here, class utils to string, that's wizard. And then in here, okay, so it does look in here. So item enchants, class name, name of enchant, solar flare. Then it inspects if that value exists for parsing inside of there. Was there anything else to that? Because I feel like that doesn't have overrides. It's just, oh, it does have an undefined return path has been reached for some reason while trying to retrieve data. So there's an assumption here that you are going to be returning one of these. And this is actually unreachable. Should I just write unreachable? I think I returned something so that it satisfied the compiler, but we learned unreachable is a thing, so we're just going to implement that now. I think that's fair. Although, I have to think about this a little, because I think there's an issue where what if we turn off, like, error logging, like error crashing, and then in that case, this would be reachable. So then that would just create bugs for no reason. Although this should never be hit in the first place, so... I don't know, it's just undefined behavior if we do that. But in theory, we shouldn't be hitting this, so... I think standard unreachable makes sense here. It's the correct implementation. Anyway, by doing this, so let's think. If we go in here and we say, no, if we go in, where's the wizard? And we say firing damage frequency, and then we have an override in here, it looks for it in here. But then, how did it know to look for it in here then? Like in the first place? Is there more that I'm missing? Okay, hold on. So then there has to be a place where it just looks in the general data structure versus this like get data thing, right? So there must be more find and parse places we haven't looked at yet. Is there? Wait, oh, look at this. Okay, I see what I did now. So, we have 3 in a row for different... It's basically a fallback. It's like, okay, try to find an ability settings first. This is the highest priority. Any value in here, use that. If we can't find it here, then do get data. Since they have ability settings, what does this mean? Ability settings is... Is there like a thing called ability settings that I'm missing here? Oh, here we go. Okay. Oh, it's like the post and pre-description stuff. So anything in here would override anything out here. So try to find stuff in here. If nothing's found, look for the variable name out here. And then if nothing's found out here, then the final step... I was definitely browsing. Then the final step is to instead grab the abilities config and get that. And the ability config is inside the wizard.t... well, whatever txt file the class is. This is the ability config. Perfect. So this actually works great. That's amazing, actually. So, in conclusion, if we override it here, the changes will be reflected over here. Okay. So that's fixed. Let's go ahead and try it. I think that's all we have to do. Alright, let's try and see what the wizard description looks like now. And then we got 3 more classes to do, so we're gonna try to finish them all up today. Maybe I should put them in a new branch, because this isn't anything related to the shadow boss today, so maybe it deserves a new feature branch. That way we're not just messing around and doing like 50 other unrelated things inside of Shadow Boss, right? I think that'd be ideal. Yeah. Happy Monday, by the way. Start of another week. Okay, let's see here. So yeah, Meteor is still too wordy, as we can tell. This one, so I don't know. Okay, let's try to shrink it down then, right? Like, I kind of wish... I feel like I should be able to auto-detect this, like how long these lines are at... Maybe at compile time? Or not compile time, at runtime. Like, maybe it should say something like, hey, your text is too big. I think that would be a nice error to have. That way we don't have to keep checking this. And what if we change it later and then like if this breaks and then somebody's like, hey, I can't read your text now. Either that or we need to add support for shrinking text. I don't know which one to do. I'd rather keep these as short as possible though. Anyways, this can be shortened very easily. This one we'll revisit. Okay, but anyways, yeah. Let's add a check for that real quick. Let's make it so the game crashes if the text goes outside of that box. So we have to go into the character menu window component. This is where the description gets displayed, right? So we know the height of this thing, at least we should. So this character ability preview component draws a box. So where's the box? Here's the description position. There should be an outline. So here's the rectangle decal, which if it's not a filled rectangle, it's just an outline. So we can see here rectangle size.y minus 4 are our box's bounds. So this is the size that our text has to fit in for this. Now, again, it wouldn't be too hard to shrink the text, but I would rather have it be not as crazy, right? I think that would be ideal. So, I guess we have to determine this at runtime, which is going to be like... It's a little tricky, because this is determined by draw decal, so we'd have to do an update, but we'd only have to do it if it changes. Which is kind of a problem, because now I need to register some kind of like callback or some kind of like event listener that says, hey, this ability preview could have possibly been updated, so now run this code to check if it still fits in the box. I don't know. Okay, so here's the thing, right? What if the player gets super powerful and the numbers get larger? That's a very real possibility, and it's just enough to make the text wrap around. Are we going to account for that too, right? Like, that doesn't really make sense to me. I think we just have to make it so it fits, and we just then try to shrink it down until it's a size that's not ridiculously hard to read. So let's do that. So this is the size of the box, the font, excuse me, the scale. So what we have to do here is adjust the scale based on the total size of the rectangle divided by what the height of the image is. So we can say here, float description height. Let's start with that. So firstly, let's start with a const standard string and actually calculate or store the description. So description is going to be now placed back over here. I wish code would understand what I meant to write instead of doing what I wrote. Well, of course, coding would be so easy if that was the case, wouldn't it? That would make things so much better. We could program whatever we wanted to if that was the case, right? Okay, so description height is going to be game get text size. So this is drawn using proportional font, so we have to use the get text size proportional font. Is it wrapped is the question. I believe it's wrapped because it's a draw shadow string prop decal with a built-in width. So it does wrap, so we're going to use get wrapped text size proportional, and then we're going to provide the string in description. It looks like it doesn't recognize game either, so we gotta include the game global pointer. Oh, we already did. I guess it's just complaining about the function not being finished then. So after this is the width itself. So I think the width is right here. So we're just gonna take that value. Let's actually store this inside its own place. So const float description width is supposed to be this. Now this is also interesting because it's like it's got multiple like different things going on here. The initial rectangle size, because I'm just using, at least from what I saw, I was originally just going to use rect.size.y here, but apparently that might mean something different. Is there like an outer border? I guess I need to check that, because I might be doing this for the wrong width. Alright, let me, before we go too deep in the weeds, let me just find out what this actually... Let me just run my program again without, you know, rebuilding. Just run the last successful build. Are you guessing the dimensions of the string? Oh, yeah. We use a function for that, of course. Can I just run the last thing, please? Run. Where's the run? Can I just run the last one, please? Okay, I guess I'm just gonna go in here and run it manually because I can't find where the run is. Isn't there like a run button? I think I just turned it off. Let me see. Let me see if it's in here by chance. Okay, no. Debug. Start debugging. Start without debugging. Can I just hit start? Can I just hit start without debugging? No, it's gonna build. There must be a way to just run the last successful executable, right? There has to be. Alright, anyways, I'm just gonna go in here and do it. /run game. That's not it. Adventures in Listoria? /run game? No? What is it called? It is called run game. Why isn't it working? Maybe it's because it's a bat file. Well, I also have an sh file, so this should... Okay, I don't know why it didn't want to pop it up, but whatever. I just wanted to see, and that's all. Okay. Yeah, because I think the box is actually around all the other stuff. Yeah, see, so there is... I think there's a box around all these, and that's the box it's referring to. Because there's another box for the icon, which... I don't know if that's in here too. I guess we gotta check. Let's see. So let me close this and then... So we have draw rectangle decal. This is just the ability preview component. And it's offset, right? Like, here's icon pause, rectangle.pause, plus 5, 5. Okay, so the icon is included in here somewhere. Here's the icon being drawn at that position. So this is the rectangle for the icon. That makes sense. So then, description. Apparently the width is this, which is the width of the original rectangle minus the description's position, which, what is description pause? The icon pause plus rectangle.size.y? Oh, it looks like it's a square, so using x or... That's just confusing. Anyway, using the width plus the width minus 2 and then 9 pixels down from the top. I assume that's just for margin. So then subtract the description position from the rectangle position's original position, which would result in... So subtract it, so you're pushing it to the left? Why? Description position minus the rectangle position is the width. Rectangle size, the whole thing, minus this little part. Okay, that makes more sense. Gives us the width. Alright, so that's where that calculation comes from. So that's the max size, that's the size we have to fill. So we're gonna put description width in here as the wrapped size. that it has to complete. And we're going to put .y because we only care about the y component of that. Then in here, the wrapped size is going to be description width, and the height now, or the text is description, and the height is now determined by taking the height. So this is the description height ratio, or text ratio. Let's just do text ratio. Is going to be the total height we have available to us, which is apparently the same in both the x and the y axis, because it's the height, divided by what the height of the description is. So it's description height divided by rectangle size.y to get how tall this piece of text is, which then gets put into these two spots to indicate what the size should be. Now, if there's only like one line, it's going to scale really big. So we're going to do a standard, is a min? Standard, it's going to get smaller. Yeah, so we want a standard max, whichever is larger. Either, or no, a standard min, for sure. So either 1 or this. We don't want it to be small, any larger than 1. So this will typically be smaller than 1, but if it's larger, use 1. Okay. Hopefully that does what we intended, and we didn't grab some random weird number. I was literally doing the same thing a week ago, and I was guessing characters per line and figuring out the amount of lines based on string length, but then again, I have multiple sections of strings to scale all at the same time. Yeah, that's a little interesting. You have to kind of make your own like string builder kind of system. It's kind of fascinating to mess with that kind of stuff. We have an issue with casting. Okay, so a narrowing conversion here. That's fine. I want it to be a float. Thank you. I think I can be explicit about it by making that a float too. That should also work. Me nodding along as if I understand a word of it. Yeah. That all made sense, right? We all understand what's going on there. Perfectly. I'm glad you all understand. I'm glad you all are following along. Okay. Let's take a look. Hopefully good things. Good results. So basically this changes to make sure that if for some reason we need longer descriptions, or maybe the characters get super powerful and for some reason the numbers make the descriptions wrap, that it's now handled. Oh. Wasn't that lovely? It's all squished over there now. Okay. Well, I mean, sure. This is in C++. Yes, C++. If it was JavaScript, then I wouldn't need all these types, because it's a typeless language. Types are just suggestions in JavaScript. Even in TypeScript, kinda. Unless you're strict. You turn on strict and then you're good. But in JavaScript, types are suggestions. Not even the... Like, you can literally put something as, like, string or int or float, and then you can just do whatever with it. It doesn't care. It's actually hilarious. Anyway, okay. So, let's see here. My guess is we probably have... So, these are... Well, okay. Let's actually debug, because I think I made some assumptions about these variables that I should not have. And taken some time to actually inspect, like, okay, what are the rectangle sizes actually meaning here? So let's go ahead and breakpoint right here. When this component draws, it should hit this breakpoint. And we'll take a look. The forbidden language. Indeed. I'm entirely self-taught. I just saw a few things, like the semicolon at the end of every line. Oh, well, I mean, even that's optional in JavaScript. Like, I'm actually working on my portfolio site right now. Where's my... Did I close it? But, I mean, like... This is my JavaScript, like... Here's no semicolon, here's a semicolon. Like... Semicolons are just suggestions. Types are just suggestions. Global variables. JavaScript says fuck all. You get to do whatever you want. It's hilarious. But yeah, sorry, I just like to meme on JavaScript a lot because it's convenient in the sense that there are very few rules, but that also comes with some drawbacks, right? Like, you might think something's a string, you've been working with the string the whole time, but it resolves as like a number, and then you just get screwed over, right? Okay, so let's first see what this I assume this description width is gonna be really tiny from what we observed. Okay, it's negative, oh, that's wonderful. It's -7. Alright. Well, first of all, let me see where I derived this from, because this might not have even been the correct value, right? So this was... Okay, so this was the next argument over, which should have been the wrapping size, which is presumably also the description width, right? So, like... Yeah, it's supposed to be the wrapping width of the draw function. So, if I substitute it exactly word for word, that should have been the exact width it should have wrapped with. So we wrote... What did we write? Where is it? Description width. Here it is. Okay. So we wrote rect.size.x. Let me just do this actually. And then go down here and compare, right? To our previous. So our previous was rect.size.x minus description pos.x minus rect.pos.x minus 4. Cast this to an int before subtracting 4, which has no real problems. So it's not like we did that incorrectly, but for some reason that value resolves to -7. So what does that mean? Why is it -7? That's interesting, because that's not a valid width. Okay. Well, what's description pos? That makes sense. Let's see here. Box width is 36, so that's the width of the icon, so that makes sense. In fact, we should be writing box width here instead of this thing, which should be 223 by 40. Oh, this is the full rectangle. No, that makes sense. Rect.size.y. So this is the full rectangle. So where's the bordered icon? So this is the icon, but where's the border? Is that down here? I don't see another draw rectangle call, so I'm not sure. Unless menu label is doing something I'm not aware of. I don't think it is, because this menu label is supposed to be like... Oh, wait. Hold on. No, that doesn't make sense. Oh, thanks for showing. I hate it. You know what my favorite thing about JavaScript, like my favorite thing in JavaScript is? And I think it's in some other languages too, but there's something called the nullifying coalescing operator. I don't think I spelled that right, but it'll correct me. Here it is, the null coalescing operator. So the null coalescing operator is a double question mark, and essentially what it does is if you have if the value is null, then it will return something that's default. But if it has a value that's non-null, like it's what is it? Yeah, non-null, then it will return that value instead of this value. So it's basically a default value if something is empty. So I just think that's the most like fascinating thing. It's called the nullish coalescing operator. Yeah. Isn't that fun? C# did no null coalescing before JavaScript. Oh, cool. I'm glad it has it too then. I thought I knew JavaScript, but then I got hit by a hoisting bug and realized I should have read the ECMA standard. Yeah. That's JavaScript for you. You think you know it and then you don't. I also just think triple equals is a hilarious concept. Because it's like, oh, so we don't respect types, but you can still check for equality based on types. And you kind of want to in most cases. Like, I've written some, when I'm like serious about writing JavaScript, instead of doing like double equals or triple equals, I'll just write a function that's called is equal to, and then if it's not triple equals to something but is double equals to something, then I'll have the JavaScript application crash and say, hey, this is just completely the wrong type. It's equal, but it's not the right type. So that catches a lot of oopsies, but it also means that double equals and triple equals becomes kind of useless for me. It's just funny. JavaScript is a fascinating language. Alright, so let's just see what else happens here. The source file is changed, whatever. Description is fine. Description height is 688. I disagree. Why is that 688? Well, I guess if the description width is -7, then yes, that would indeed be correct, because it would be every character is just back to back, getting wrapped. Also, Game Boy, thank you for the follow. Description height text ratio, that's fine. So, yeah, we have to figure out this height thing. You know what's weird though? This is... Okay, so the height of this is 40. So it would have been like... Description height... Okay, description height is... I have this backwards. It should be rectangle.size.y divided by the description height. It should have made like super tiny and squished. Anyways, let's analyze this rectangle width a little bit, or description width a little bit more. So... What I really need, now that we know that rect is like that whole rectangle, and if we're drawing the icon at this position, then we should be taking that position and adding, like, the fact we're drawing this here tells me we should be taking... I like how I put a comment here. No, the Y is not a typo, it's a square. So we use the Y to determine the X. Or how about just use X like a sane person would? Okay, anyway, if they're both the same, use the correct one. Use the one that makes sense. Come on, Amy. Alright, text width. That's displaying it. Is this what I was looking for? Text width. Let me think about it. Is this what I was looking for this whole time? The text width? Damn. I already had this variable here. But no, this is the display name for the okay, so this is a little different in the sense of... Yeah, this is like... It looks like I just manually scale it by half. Like, I did it visually. This is Visual Studio. It's just using an extension called Claudia IDE to display background images. You can like customize it based on timer, or you can set up a wallpaper or rotating wallpaper display. I'm also using a theme called Mystica Dark, so that just makes it colored a little differently. But yeah, it is Visual Studio. I keep it pretty minified. I keep most of my stuff on the sides. Like, a lot of people like to have this just always visible on the side, and I'm like, that's annoying. I want to see my code. Or like, other stuff. Or like something on the bottom. A lot of developers do this too, and I'm like, that's annoying. Get rid of that. I want to see my code. Yeah, a lot of people always ask me, what distro am I using? I'm like, oh, I'm using the wonderful distro called Windows 11. God, saying that with a straight face is so hard. God, it's funny. But yes. If you don't believe me, here's a File Explorer, which is an absolutely terrible piece of software. I use Vim with Rosepine. Yeah, a lot of people have recommended me like NeoVim or Vim. Or, some people are like, use Emacs, that's cool. You get street cred for Emacs. I'm like, okay. I'm on Windows, so I'm sticking with Windows. The choice was kind of made when IntelliSense kind of crapped out on me when I was using Visual Studio Code on Linux. So, yeah. And I haven't really learned any of these, like, more text-based IDEs that rely more on keyboard shortcuts. Like, I do know my keyboard, I know my keyboard shortcuts and ways around on Visual Studio, of course, because I use it all the time, but like, not having something visual, especially with my monitor setup, it's like, I'm just not used to it, so that's kind of my excuse. I haven't learned it. Oh, I've heard about Helix too, yeah. Okay, so let's see. So box width, I'm gonna take this, and I'm gonna take the icon pause, and I'm just gonna subtract the two, because that makes sense to me. If we take the box width and we subtract the description, not the icon pause, plus the rectangle size, which is the image size, the width, right? Then we essentially have where the text should be starting. What is... oh, let me use the X component of that. So let's just see what that looks like, because that makes more sense to me. And we'll probably be close, but I don't know. Something seems off about all this. Because, like, the building name, I guess I didn't pay attention, but the building name is off by a little bit too. And, like, we already had an established description pause, so it's just strange to me that, like, I'm using this. Maybe I should just subtract the description pause from the rectangle size. Why am I not just doing that? Because that's the edge of the screen, right? So take that, description pause, minus the entire box. That makes way more sense. Why am I not just doing that? Okay, let's just try that then. I think that makes the most sense. I probably had some like floating point error. Yeah, I'm probably got the cast. Let me just do that now. Okay. Syntax error. Where? Oh, that was probably me mid-typing. It like got to the file just as I was fixing it. So maybe we're good now. Hopefully. Yeah, we're good. Okay. So let's try this and see what happens. Cause like, I can't rely on my descriptions being short enough to look the way they always will look. I can't really rely on that. What's wrong? There's still that syntax error, it says. Am I crazy? Oh, over here. Oops. Okay. Like, apparently this is supposed to be the description width, but it's like, why is that giving me such weird results? Like, technically I'm doing something almost similar, right? I'm doing the description pause minus the rectangle pause, which is the beginning. And then I'm subtracting the initial rectangle size from, like, that, which is... I'm not quite sure what we're trying to accomplish there, so that's kind of weird. Anyways, I'm gonna try this variable too. But if I can, I'll go down to here and see what this resolves as, because that actually might be fascinating. I don't know why that's even there, but, like... I'm just very perplexed by why I chose to write that. Which, this is older code, so it's kind of expected. I've done some, like, we haven't visited this in a while. And this is what I always mean when, like, we're thinking about how to write our code. Like, you have to realize everything you write, you're gonna come back, well, if you're working on a long game project like I am, you're gonna come back to everything 6 months from now. So anything you write, you better make it at least semi-readable. Okay, so 119 sounds pretty good. It sounds a little tiny. I'm just gonna see what it looks like. It's also way over here. Oh, that's interesting. So doing description pause minus box width gets us way over here. It also looks like... Okay, so I think what we have to do is actually look at what these variables represent now. Because I kind of just changed them under some assumptions, but it looks like it's not doing what we want. So let's just back up and start from the beginning. Let's do this. Because what we have to actually do is very simple, but we have to know what variables we have. Like, we have to know what all these represent. Maybe the names are a little too vague, and so maybe we have to redo some of these names. Why does it need a hex code? So in my text rendering system, I like to use, we use pixel values. We use what are they called? 8-bit integers to represent color, right? RGB. So if I'm in a color picker, I'll just write what the hex code it tells me is instead of writing the number. So that's why I write it sometimes. This is Windows. Yes. This is the great distro called Windows 11. And that is sarcasm, by the way. There's a lot of hate for Windows, especially nowadays. I mean, I think when I saw Copilot in Notepad, I'm like, that's a fucking joke. Get that out of here. Okay. Why going raw on C++? Are you asking me, like, why am I not using AI? Is that what you mean by going raw? Because I just do this in general. This is... I program for fun, so... Yeah. Alright, let's take a look at this. So this is the description pause, which is like... Okay, that's probably fine. That's, like, kind of near the top of the screen. I guess if I, like, look at the actual screen, this might be helpful. Disable that for a second. Yeah, that looks about right. Let me just... Can I grab just this guy? I think it's like... Is that like Alt print screen or something? Alt print screen. Why do the windows look like... Whatever that is, Hyperland? Probably just coincidence. So this is... Wait, I need it to be relative to the window. This is the window. Hold on. 155? Where are we getting 155.70 from? Okay, so it must be relative to something like 155, 110. Let me put this in like GIMP instead of here. What? Hold on. Include a watermark when content is AI generated. Fascinating. Can we like get rid of that? Like the fact there's a dedicate button is insane. Image creator, generative erase, remove background. Wow. Amazing. Okay. Let me go into GIMP. I'm like, why is this here? But yeah, probably just coincidence. I do go for like a very minified, a minimal like style for my IDE. So even though it's Visual Studio and like Visual Studio has a lot of like bloat and a bunch of stuff, I usually take it all out. It is not NeoVim, it's just Windows. This is Windows. This is Windows, I promise. Windows 11. There's, y'all can't see it, but... Yeah, here. Start menu. Windows start menu. Yes. Okay, so we're looking for that, like, 110. So if I... 110 would be, like... So it can't be this edge, because this is, like, way over here for 110. So it's... Oh, 155, excuse me. Okay, that sounds more right. So this is 174 pixels out. Let me just back up a little bit and maybe... I can do that, okay. So this is 155 is like here. So maybe it starts from right here. Okay, so that's a roughly 155 pixels. So my guess is that description pause represents right here. Or close to it. Maybe like just outside here. So that kind of makes sense. It must include the title though, because like... Yeah, so this is drawing the title of the ability. So that would be right here. And then a line below, which is what? Okay, so I did -10 on the y-axis. So that's this. So what we need to do is from here, take the width going all the way across. So the number should be somewhere roughly around 781. Oh wait, no, that's not true. I forgot. We also have to account for pixel size. So the pixel size, I think, is like... Oh, I didn't really account for that. So that might not actually make sense. Okay, how about this? We already know it's being drawn there, right? So we know this position has to be this. We already know that part. So we just need to know what the box... So it's the box width minus the icon box size width. Yeah, to get the width. And then we draw it at that position. So it's literally going to be like Let's try to calculate it then. So it should be description, text label width, box width maybe is going to be description pause, right? Dot x minus, or excuse me, take the whole box's width, which we know is this because we checked for that earlier. Rectangle dot size dot x minus description dot pause dot x, and then subtract the icon's width, which is wait a second, isn't this the width? Oh, hold on. The box width is... Okay, now I'm confusing myself. Text pause is 117.101. Shoot. I need to, like, normalize this. How do I normalize this? Let me go to Adventures in Listoria and look at main and see what our default pixel size is. Our pixel size is... Okay, 4, 4. So every 4 pixels represents 1 unit. 1 pixel. So if I took this image and I scaled it by 4, I think we would get what we're looking for, although it kind of also scales based on... Does that work? I think that works. That would kind of make sense, right? 264? Like, in theory, right? And then... So the 155... is now right here. I'm trying to think if that makes sense. 155, 110. Well, 110's way down here, so... Which is interesting, because that's like... Wait a second, we already hit this breakpoint once, too. This is, What ability is this? This is the lightning bolt ability. So we are looking at this one. So this... Okay, this kind of makes sense. So it looks like this position is the center of the middle of the top box. The middle top of a box. I'm glad you enjoy my workspace. Do I have a lot of menus? Well, I already built my own UI system, so I'd rather not use somebody else's UI system. It's just a personal choice. I already made an entire UI system. It took a month to make, so I'm just gonna use that. Yeah. It's kind of like a programmer's pride kind of thing, right? It's like, I made a thing so that I could use it, and I'm only gonna use it. Even if it's hard mode, because that's fun. Plus, I know the insides and outs of it, so if I want to add new stuff, like new callbacks and new features and functionality, maybe change how the scroll bars work in certain ways, I can do that. I can add components and everything to it. In order to have a menu system substitute what I use in my menus, it needs to have, I'm sure other UI systems are pretty thorough about everything, but finding suitable replacements, then spending time learning it, then actually re-implementing all of it, that just sounds like a pain. I guess that's why you asked, is it big? Do I have a lot of menus? Because the answer is yes, I do. If we go to menu type, here's every menu in the game. So that's what, 30 maybe? It's a bit. What's this? 36. So I have 34 menus. Yeah. Which is quite a bit. That's quite a bit of work. And then I also have that controller compatibility to them. So that's another pain point. My menu system includes the controller compatibility part, so then I would have to rewrite and reintegrate into a new menu system, which is also a pain. There's just so much to redo for a menu. To even begin that task sounds insane. Okay. So if this is the middle, how about this? I'm going to... how did we calculate where the icon goes? So the icon is determined by rectangle pause plus 5. So rectangle pause has to be here then, because this is +5. Like, literally. Ish. So that makes sense. It's just 5, 5 in both directions. So clearly rect.size.x and y are both... See, that's what's confusing me is, well, how's it a square? Okay, maybe the image draws the outline. I didn't consider this. What if the image, the outline we draw is just... Oh, that's why we use the y twice, because if we used x, guess what? It goes like... It'll go like all the way across, so the x is the width of this box. So that means... Okay. I'm seeing it now. I'm seeing the vision. So it should be rectangle size.x minus the icon's size, which is this. It's a square, right? Because that's the remaining size. No conversion from... Okay. This is a VI2D. I only need one component of this. So that's where the -4 came from. So that's how we originally got this formula. Or roughly that formula. Kind of. This is actually still different, which is also interesting. Clay only does the layout, so it might be easy to integrate. Well, the unfortunate part is that almost all the menus in the game have now been integrated, so there's probably not much left in terms of menu stuff. Minus just doing what we're doing now and like modifying like little details about how they're drawn. So if I was like in the middle of implementing menus, that would probably be the ideal time to switch like what the layout system would be and stuff. But yeah, this is one of the pains of a custom menu system, though, is like, how do you handle the positioning stuff? Because that's probably the biggest thing. And I just chose to go with absolute positioning, which is kind of rough to work with because you have to visualize everything in your head when you're doing it, which can be a little daunting. So with this width being like this, I think this is an appropriate substitution for these two, so I'm going to try that and see what happens. Okay. So now we take... I don't even know if I still need that, right? Yes. So I'm not going to say this is the description height, or yeah, height ratio, right? Because it's just... Now we do the get text wrap again versus the... So that's the width. We actually need the height. Oops. So the height... That's fine. This just needs to be y. And we need to subtract a 10 here because it's actually 10 below where the description is. So -10 gives us the text label box height, which then is not a width height anymore. We take that and we divide it by... So I'm going to put the standard min again. And divide that by the descriptions. So let's move the description out one more time. On standard string. This is the description. So we get our game, get wrap, get text, wrap text size prop proportional to this string with being draw description text label box. Oh wait, we do still need the width. Hold on. Shoot. Wait, but that's easy. We just do the... We just get rid of the 10. We get rid of... Do we need the 4? I think we still need the 4. And we put the X here. And that should be the width. Like so. Right? Okay. And that should be everything we need for that. This height, this is going to return a vector, so get the y component of that, and then use that height ratio as the text size instead. In theory, that should work. I'll probably leave it there and call it for today. I know it's been kind of a short programming session, but I did start a little... Oh, I missed a thing. Hold on. I do want to see where we are at, though. And then we'll probably have to debug this tomorrow. But it'll be a good place to stop. This is This is a good feature to make sure we just get done now. I actually think I was supposed to like work on this before I started the chapter 4 boss stuff, so it's just kind of funny I'm coming back to it now. Old Zygo, thanks for the follow. Okay. But yeah, it's been fun. I hope you all enjoyed today's stream. It was kind of short, but it was good. Let's just see where we're at. Yeah, that was kind of a mess. But yeah, like I said, trying to manage all these different things. Okay, we're onto something. The text is upside down, which means the scale is inverted. But we can see the text size is indeed correct, so it's probably just a sign flip and then it'll be fixed, because it's starting to be drawn from the correct position, so that's a good sign we almost did it right. They're just upside down. So yeah, that's cool. I'll fix that later. But it looks like the math worked out. It looks like I have to subtract like a little bit more. It's actually bleeding outside the box, which is kind of interesting, right? So I think the -4 doesn't exist for the width. And let's see, it was size Y minus rectangle size... Wait, what? Rectangle size Y minus rectangle size Y. How does that make sense? That just cancels out, right? And then we have a -4 minus 10. So does this just resolve to 14? Is that what we... That doesn't make any sense, does it? Shouldn't it just be rectangle size dot Y minus 14? It should be, right? Yeah, that makes sense. I think that's what I intended to do. Like, that's kind of weird. I think that's correct. Anyways, we'll try that next time. But, thank you also, XFC, for the follow. And for those of you that tuned in today, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. We'll be back tomorrow for more programming. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye.